call the meeting to order. Thank you for being here. I will do roll call. Mike Cruz, present. Sandra Levarsky.
Sandra Levarsky is not going to be here, and she has an excused absence.
Thank you. Anthony Garcia. President. Claire Johnson.
Present.
Matt McGrath.
Matt McGrath will be joining us late, 30 minutes late.
Chris Farrell.
Can you hear us? Chris, can you hear us?
Can we send him a chat? Maybe let him. Thank you. And Tina Zecker.
The second will also be late.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is upcoming events and a gentle reminder to check flagstaff365.com for information on what's going on. I did mention previously also that folks can sign up for the email newsletter. That's a great way to see what's going on without having to check the website. Public participation is next. Staff, do we have any public participation?
I did not receive any public comment prior to 3 p.m. today.
I did not even check.
Thank you. Moving forward to the approval of minutes. Did commissioners have the opportunity to review the minutes of the January 9th meeting? And are there any questions or comments?
I move to approve.
Thank you. It's been moved to approve the January 9th BPAC minutes as presented. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the January 9th meeting minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? The motion carries and the minutes are approved as presented. Thank you. Next up is announcements. Staff.
Yes, well, joining us today from the first Beautification and Public Art Commission is Kristen Carhudo. Did I pronounce that right?
Almost.
Carhudo, perfect. Carhudo, there we go. And she's our new art collection and beautification coordinator. So we are now fully staffed. First of all, a round of applause. So anyway, Kristen comes from us with a varied background, but very strong in the arts. For those of you who know the bus shelter at the Museum of Northern Arizona, that was a public art project that Kristen oversaw. She has a lot of experience from the Museum of Northern Arizona. I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about it, but also Gallery 37 down in the West Valley. And she has a lot of experience with artists and taking care of objects, which, as you know, is something that is critical to this position. So anyway, she's been here. This is week 3?
Starting week 3 or 4.
I think you're starting.
I don't know.
Days, I know. We
Going by very
have so much to do, but I'm going to go ahead and let Kristen introduce herself a little bit more. And then I would like all the commissioners to introduce themselves to her.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be a part of Team Flagstaff. As Jana mentioned, my background is very varied. So for about 20 years, I've been working for nonprofit arts organizations in a variety of capacities, primarily as a marketing director, marketing and public affairs director. But in nonprofit, we wear many hats. So I've also curated exhibitions. I've assisted or oversaw public art projects. And I've worked with artists, local, regional, national, and international. I have a passion for art history, primarily modern Mexican and Chicano art. And I am thrilled to be in this position to be involved with both beautification projects and public art. So finally, my education and professional experience is truly syncing up with my passion. So the stars are aligning. So it's wonderful to be here, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Do you want to start with the introduction of the commission?
Why don't we start with folks on the phone? So that we're not biased against these. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself to Kristen?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm Chris. I'm the executive director at Theatricos Theater Company. I spent a lot of years as the development director for public television, where we did art auctions. Yeah, it's wonderful that, I'm the new guy on the commission. So it's great that this commission has a history of making sure public art is part of citywide planning. That is a credit to staff and this commission long before me. And I'm proud to be able to stand on strong shoulders.
Thank you. Claire, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Claire Johnson. I am just coming off a really long shift, so I'm sorry if I'm a little frazzled, but yeah, I'm Claire. I'm on the commission, and welcome.
Thank you.
Derek Garcia, you want to go next?
Commissioner Garcia, my name is Anthony Garcia. I've been on the commission longest, and I like art. But beyond that, I've been like a community advocate who stood up for pretty much the voice of the working class for the past, I don't know, 10 years or more in the city council chambers from time to time.
Woot woot.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm Mike Cruz. I met you during the interview. It's good to see you again. Welcome to the team. I work for a national nonprofit based out of DC. I really believe in community service. I'm on several boards, city, county, and nonprofit. So I really believe in trying to move work forward and bring a community voice to the table. So I'm happy to be here. I chair the commission. I've been chairing it, I think, since last summer or last fall. So not quite a year. It's good to have you on board.
Thank you.
Sure.
So we have three commissioners who aren't here right now. Vice Chair Lebarski, who is also a very long-serving member on the commission. And then Commissioner McGrath will be in here later, and Commissioner Zucker will be in here later. And I'll let them introduce themselves when they come in. We'll take a small break between items and have them do that.
Next.
So next, actually, we're going to put Kristen to work right away. She's going to present to you a completed project from the Beautification and Action Grants, which is one of the programs she's taking over.
Great.
May I stand for this?
Yes.
Okay. So everyone can see. So we're excited to announce that one of our grantees has recently completed the Beautification and Action Project, and that is Willow Bend Environmental Education Center. And so they have a new butterfly mural and pollinator pathways project. And this is located in the Children's Garden, which is adjacent to the center. And the mural that you see here was painted by Robert Chambers, and it was unveiled last fall. More than 200 people, including the center's volunteers and members, as well as park visitors, were in attendance. And as you can see here in this artist's sketch, the mural features Arizona's official state butterfly, which is a two-tailed swallowtail butterfly. And in the foregrounds, native flowering plants can be seen. So this project is designed to highlight the importance of native plant abundance and, of course, our pollinators. It is also designed to provide a welcoming space and to be interactive. So visitors are encouraged to stand in front of the butterfly and become its body and ultimately to become part of the mural as they take pictures and share out these pictures as well. And so Willow Bend has quite a few plans for the Butterfly Mural and Pollinator Pathways project. This artwork and also its accompanying small free lending library will be utilized in future public programming, including an annual spring celebration this May. And then also it'll become a critical part of their summer camps for 2023 and beyond. And finally, if you have yet to see the mural, next time you are out at Willow Bend Environmental Education Center, stop by and take a peek.
For those of you who were on the commission last May, you may remember they didn't have the exact artistic rendering. They just had that concept on the left, but you can see how it evolved and into its present form.
That looks great, thank you.
And then Kristen again.
Yes, okay. So I will just speak briefly about our Beautification and Action Grant opportunity. So as you all know, this is a biannual opportunity with deadlines March 15th and September 15th of each year. And so since I've started, I've been hard at work just making sure that we are ramping up both our marketing and PR efforts. So before you leave today, commissioners, I will make sure that I send you off with a handful of flyers that we recently had designed. These are evergreen, so they're meant to last beyond this March 15th deadline. And I will also make sure that all of you receive the flyer as well via email, so you have that to share out with potential individuals who might want to apply for an action grant, Beautification Action Grant. So we have done a direct mail piece to 300 of our e-subscribers. I've also sent the flyer out to all of the neighborhood associations, to city staff to share out with their contacts as well, and to Flagstaff nonprofit organizations with large community groups or artist groups. And then we've been promoting the opportunity via social media, not only the City of Flagstaff social media platforms, but also Creative Flagstaff has shared, Sustainability has shared and will continue to share. And City of Flagstaff, we have 2 more posts, which will be sharing prior to the deadline. And then last week, I finalized a press release, which we had the City of Flagstaff share out to the local media. And the Arizona Daily Sun reached out to Jana and interviewed her, and then asked me a few questions as well and took a picture last week. And we had a really nice feature that ran in Saturday's issue, including a little interview that also was included. So it provided some nice visibility, not only for Willow Bend's project, but for our opportunities as well here at the city.
Great.
A reminder for commissioners to please share the announcement to your own social media sites and your own networks as you're able. I've seen them on the City of Flagstaff Facebook page and have shared to my own. So if you have that opportunity, please do that and help spread the word about these grants. Thank you.
And next, Susan Hardeman's going to tell us about, in an announcement about where we are on the traffic signal cabinet call. Proposals received and the selection penalties.
We got a great response. I'm happy to share with everyone. We've got 69 submissions, which I heard is a record breaker. We have our first selection committee meeting on the 22nd. And hey, Michael, you're on that. And I sent out an email with the PDF artist statements I'm going to be sending those out to each group a week ahead of time so you can review that before the meeting. And Fox Glen has 17 submittals. Dortha has 9. Beulah and McConnell, or Lumberjack, has 9. Beulah and Forest Meadow, very popular, 22 submissions. Beulah and Woodlands has 12. And so the Beulah selection committee is going to be very busy with 43 submissions to look at.
That could be an all-day event.
Yes, it could
We better
be.
watch.
It's a retreat.
Yeah, it is a retreat. And then Sunnyside, just as a reminder, is meeting on 2/27. And the Beulah West Side Selection Committee is meeting on 3/3 from 1 to 3 p.m. So we got all our ducks in a row finally.
And can you remind me, each location has its own selection committee, or are we
Yes.
on the whole? Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
So the Fox Glen Selection Committee is choosing for Fox Glen. The Dortha or Sunnyside is choosing for Dortha. And the Beulah, we just took 3 locations and put them together.
okay.
So that one's a little more of a heavy hitter, but
But they're different people, because I think I only have Fox Glen on my calendar.
correct.
Okay, okay.
Yes, it's different selection committee.
And well, we were very excited. Yeah, we thought that because the Beulahs are so close together, that the selection panel might want to see what was going, if possible, for each place of context, in case they wanted to run a theme together or something like that.
A great response, very excited.
Well, just a brief announcement about how well council received the art concepts for the Downtown Connection Center, the art glass, and the Southside Grove sculpture. Thank you very much, Commissioner Garcia. And then Commissioner McGrath, I can't thank him right now because he's not in the room, but they were there. I know Commissioner Zucker, you didn't quite make it to the end.
I
It was quite
tried.
a long night. I felt your presence at the start of the committee, but it was really not knowing how, the artwork was going to be received. We don't get to like prep council or get any kind of feedback, ahead of time. It's always a little bit of nerve wracking, but I think what spoke to me the most was when council member Harris and House said that they felt heard, that their neighborhood felt heard. And that since I started here, I have tried to, incorporate sometimes that I read, community input process of varied and creative types, not just the standard public meeting. And that was rewarding to me, I'll just say it, to hear that it was received and they felt that meant a lot. Above and beyond them loving Mel. Which is, great for our artists. We are busy trying to get the contracts together so that we can go to council and get approved. So that's the next step in that project.
So it will go on for approval.
It will, it looks like it's gonna go on consent agenda, so I'm not anticipating another big presentation. I will be there though, in case questions are asked, and I will be prepared with a presentation, but I'm not sure it's going to be needed.
Thank you. Next up is commissioners' announcements. Does anybody have an announcement to share? I will announce that the Flagstaff Symphony Orchestra has their next concert next week, Saturday, the 18th at 7:30 p.m. It is John Williams and his music, featuring the composer John Williams and his music. So it'll be music that people recognize if you're not into orchestral stuff. It's like it will be a really, really good show. So if you don't have tickets yet, and you'd like something unique to do for your Valentine, albeit late. Please come, we'd love to have you.
Better late than never.
Right, we'd love to have you there. And that's it. Moving forward, we have no action items, but I do think that we need to reorder the agenda in order to accommodate Commissioner McGrath.
First of all, I'd like to note that Commissioner Executive did come in during the announcements, and she is now present. Commissioner Graff should be joining us in 10 more minutes. So he asked that the discussion items 1 and 2 be deferred till he gets back in. So we're going to start with discussion item number 3, the travel for conferences. Travel conferences for commission. And this was Commissioner Garcia requested this item at the last meeting. And I'll just give a brief overview. Obviously, the fiscal year is ending on June 30th. So basically, I found that we have $2,000 for travel expenses for commissioners exclusively. That generally goes to hotel, room and board, although we have a little bit of flexibility what we charge to line item. There's $2,500 for registration. This is somewhat shared between staff and commission, although I can put the majority towards the commission because staff has some other money. And so, you know, so think of us having about $4,000 for the remainder of this fiscal year. The problem is to what to spend it on. Really, that's kind of the, you know, the theme of our commission and the program. Sometimes we have money and sometimes it's hard to get it spent. So I just, a couple of things that I just pulled together. They're just here for, you know, possibilities, you know, potentialities. Not sure if they all fit and or all sure can be done. And if you guys have other ideas, that's why this is a discussion item. But there is a festival or kind of an art exhibition called Desert X over in Palm Springs, and it occurs every other year. And Vice Chair Lebowski, I know this theme would sing to her. That you know, the exhibition this year examines the social and environmental themes that focus on the changes that, you know, in a world that's increasingly shaped by climate crisis, globalism, and the political and economic migrations that follow in their wake. So basically, the exhibitions are, you know, they're kind of set, you know, all over the Coachella floor, kind of between around Palm Springs and Coachella. So you kind of go see them on your own. So, and they are up between March 4th and May 7th. And, you know, this Desert X is obviously somewhat devoted to desert climates. And so again, but it's broad enough that I thought there might be some interest in it. Also remember, of course, we're going to have our own Art X Festival here, put on by Creative Flagstaff in Memorial Day weekend. It's pilot launch, so it's not like we don't have a local one to go to. So that's something to consider. The other one, I think we jokingly told you about this one in Poland, but it does have an online feature, and I think that's, you know, the part that would be viable, and it is actually only $140 registration for online. So it's very affordable. Everybody could participate if they want to. It does look like it's going to be very, how do you say it? Pedagogic. I think that's the word. Okay. It's university papers.
Yeah.
So, but their fourth theme for this festival that catch my eye. You know, arts and social, political, and community life. You know, again, some of the other about art histories and theories, and those are going to be not quite in the public art realm, but they afford it, and certainly is affordable. And even though it's technically outside our window for this fiscal year, we could pay for it in this fiscal year because it's right at the beginning of the next fiscal year. So that's a possibility. And then, of course, I thought, you know, we can always go down to the valley and see some of the great public art there. We could possibly lead a tour. You know, got a van rental, you know, have an overnight stay. You know, this would, you know, go require staff time to put together on a pretty, you know, on a short time period. But I do, at some point, I know I would like to do this because we just came off an art administrators meeting of all our administrators all over Arizona. We're starting to get together. I think that we all want to see what everybody's, you know, been doing. But, you know, there's some great examples that I think in the valley that's, you know, that I've been involved with and others in, that I know very well have been involved with and who, you know, who would be willing to come out and speak about them, and some of the artists, of course, as well. You know, just even going to see all the terrazzo floors in Sky Harbor, if you haven't seen them, as just, you know, an incredible, you know, space. And I, you know, terrazzo floors are something, they're interior and they're, you know, they're really a wonderful option. I think if we had been involved in the courthouse earlier, we might have done a project like this. I mean, not this kind of design, but we would have might more maybe done before on the inside. The other thing is, of course, there's other mountain cities that, you know, they have great public art programs that we could learn a lot from. Obviously, maybe the closest one is Denver. And so that's another one, though, again, we'd have to outreach to Denver groups, see if we could get, you know, a little tour put together in a timely manner. You know, if we did Phoenix, I wouldn't do it past May. It's really hot. Denver could easily be pushed, you know, to June. So those were just kind of some of the things that I pulled up in response to, you know, Commissioner Garcia's request. And I think we better do this one as soon as possible. You will see that in our last budget item, though, I'm actually asking for an increase in that budget for next year for commissioners. Yes. Yes. So,
Thank you. So what are next steps in terms of?
now, this is just a discussion. Are you interested in any of these, or do you have your own ideas of, you know, and this is, I think, something that if you're really interested in one of them, you can also email me afterwards and we can discuss it. You know, we have to have a little bit of, you know, how does it really apply? Like I said, I'm more giving you this information to kind of go and read and see if you're really interested, if you think it really applies to your work here. And then we can, you know, kind of discuss as a group or on an individual basis. And I can't obviously exceed the funds that we have, but.
So that's kind of my question, and maybe this is for you, Commissioner Garcia, but, I mean, what do you see as being the ultimate goal of these trips? I mean, they all sound great. I would love to go see public art, but I think probably what would be informative for me is like what's the process behind it look like, and how does that compare to what we do, or are there things that we can learn from that? Are there other goals that you see or that you feel like you've gotten out of these trips before?
I feel like you kind of answered your question in there. When you're in the question itself is just, so I wrote a little something, maybe I can just bring it out now, but I don't remember what I said when I wrote it because I was still waking up. But I said, it is important to utilize every tool in our cabinet to make the best decisions for the public. With this in mind, I believe that continued education and team building exercises when appropriate can not only be fun, but also be an effective way to increase Big PAC's capacity for thinking outside of the box with examples from other communities and other art programs in other parts of the country, and inside of other side of conferences. So not only is this a good way to start, you know, realizing the type of funding that we do have for this type of programming, but that are available, but I feel it is equally important to have a discussion annually so we can plan how to best utilize these extended learning opportunities and travel funds to better serve the public in our community. And I guess what I meant by that is pretty much what I said. You know, going to American for the Arts conference brought home a lot of ideas, like looking into capital projects, things that now we're kind of taking for granted. Like I had to help build those past EPACs. And I learned them from being in these rooms with these people who had similar ideas and may have done them before. I think Jana hit it right, the nail right on the head. I went through and focused on, you know, like the Poland one. And I also wrote up a little thing for like, you need to take us to Phoenix, show us around, just as a team building exercise. And so we can understand what's happening in other communities. I like the idea with the Poland ones, you know, being online and everything. I don't know if that's going to be as well received, but at least so we can start having these conversations. So in the future, if there is like another art expedition or America for the Arts next year, or in future BPACs, so they have this opportunity, because until I spoke up about it, it wasn't really being represented or talked about. We need to be sure that we have all these at our disposal, and you know, now we're talking about it, and that's the most important thing when it comes to these commissions, is that we talk about it. So when I look at Desert X, we have Art X coming up, and right, what better way to go to another X convention that has already been established and see just what they're doing. When you know, me and Jonathan last year went out to Grand Rapids and looked at what they were doing with what we are kind of the festival that we're throwing now, that is similar to what we saw, it taught us everything. Well, you know, we brought back a lot of the templates that they were using that are interchangeable for now what we're seeing in this festival here. That was mind blowing, and it also stopped us from spending money in ways that we didn't need to. So it's just wow, like I didn't even expect that to happen, but once we got there, it just kind of flowed that way. And once you get yourself into those environments, you all know, you start thinking differently, feeling differently. This isn't a way to go, you know, have the city pay for vacations to any extent. It's team building and it's tool building. We want to make sure that we you know, when we run out of ideas, that we're able to focus on like other people's work, good working templates, and having these chances to travel do that. So this year, I think it would be cool if we could, you know, do the Jana thing, you know, have her kind of represent what happened down in the valley and take us around, cruise us around. If we could all get on the same page with it. If we don't have time for it this year, just so that staff knows, and you know, I think it's important that we have this discussion at least once a year to see what's out there and to see who wants to do what and where they want to go in the future.
We could probably have it earlier in the fiscal year so that we have, you know, 10 months to plan. See if anything comes up in the fall.
Yeah, I agree. I was expecting there to be an American for the Arts Conference, and they usually are in May and June, and they're just not having them. So that is kind of a very good, you know, the public art network, and traditionally their offerings were something that was just right fit what I would like our commissioners to see and do. They're not really functioning right now in that capacity. And so now we're kind of having to reach, maybe they'll come back and recongeal in that capacity in the future. It's hard to say at this juncture. Because I was kind of waiting for it to come up, and I was going to send it out to all of you. You know, who was interested in going, but it's not happening. So, so that's why we're kind of here this year where we are. But yeah, I think we can have it earlier. You know, there's a couple that happen, you know, at different times of the year. And we are definitely too late for, you know, something. One Codex was in, they call it, it's Codex. Codeworks.
Yeah.
And they were in Denver this year.
Yes, that was.
Yeah, but in October. I didn't focus in on them because they do tend to do public art that's very tied to technology. That's where the code comes in. And we don't have a lot of high-tech pieces, you know.
Yeah.
They do have a lot of sculpture and fabrication. though, which
Yes.
Would be helpful.
You're right, so we might look at them harder next year, the next fiscal year. But I will certainly see if a Phoenix tour is feasible in our
In general.
workload. I would love to do it. I would love to do it. I Love to take you all around.
Yeah. If we pay for it, before the fiscal year, are we able to extend the trip and do it like in October or?
I believe so.
Yeah, so even if we don't need to rush into it now, we could kind of have it on the outside of it. That's only if the commission agrees that that's something that they want to do. If not, we could, two of us could get together and head to the desert, check that thing out. Or we could just put this aside and not do anything. It's up for discussion, guys.
Don't kick me on. When you brought up the Desert X thing, I mean, my initial thought was like, this could be very informative as far as the Art X goes. Going to something like that now, are we really going to be able to have, are we really going to be able to have a voice and influence Art X that's happening in May if we're looking at it in March or April?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What we'll
So
have.
does it make sense to even be considering that then?
What we'll have is more balance. So we'll see what we're doing. We'll see how they did what they're doing. We can talk to the city about how things were planned. The biggest thing that we learned from Grand Rapids is that the model that works for them in a very capital driven private industry art festival is not going to work in a how do you say it? Socialist? No, in a government and pushed. I just don't know how to say it correctly, but we learned a lot from that experience. So I think that it would just give us another perspective of how folks are doing it in that area, which is.
And
Go ahead, Commissioner
And-
Brown.
I would add that even though it's late in the game to influence ArtX this May, you could definitely influence ArtX in the following year. So things like that are definitely worth doing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say, because this is a pilot and they're gonna be taking all their lessons learned from this pilot, expanding. I also see Desert X, like I said, it might sing to Vice Chair Lebarsky because she's always very interested in environmental types of projects. And yes, these are new projects, planning for the future, but it could be kind of interesting to see what some international artists might be doing on that kind of front, even outside of a festival.
Yeah, and then like if I was to go to something like that, since we're on the topic, of course I would be having meetings with the city that I do on my own time. Besides that, I would be talking to the locals about how just their public work or their public art program is defined there and how it works. I would be going from, if I had the capacity to, from Palm Springs all the way to, what's that town with the casino right there? I mean, there's a bunch of little cities in there that you can just go to and talk to each municipality within 30 miles, just say what's up, if you wanted to.
Well, and could we build something like that into the trip to Phoenix? Like, would you be able to connect us, like, even if it was a dinner or something with people who are in a similar commission or decision-making position within that city and how it would just be interesting to hear what their process is like.
Yes, absolutely.
Or maybe different reps, like somebody from Scottsdale and somebody from Phoenix, and somebody from Peoria. Didn't somebody do some artwork in Peoria? Was that what they do? Yeah. Yeah. So to get, have like a dinner like that to hear different ways of working might be nice.
Right, that'd be good for them too.
Possibly good.
Or you can just wander around with us when we're doing a tour.
Lots of options. So what do you want us to do in terms of?
Well, first of all, I'm hearing interest in the
Yes.
Phoenix tour. So I'm hearing interest in the Phoenix tour, I'm hearing interest in Desert X. That's, and I'm hearing the most in the Phoenix tour. And so I'm gonna see if I can put that together. I would like to do it and, it might be, I can't go over Art X, obviously, but we'll try to, fit it in May before it gets.
Or I love the idea of October.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
If you guys can just pay for that and then get it worked into after the summer. But you gotta figure the budget and stuff too, the retreat and all that.
Right.
That'll work best. So whatever works best for you guys. If it doesn't work this year, least do it next year and continue to have this conversation in perpetuity.
Well, Ardex doesn't go to October. Ardex ends in July. Is that what you guys were saying? You wanna
No, go to
pay-
Phoenix in
Oh,
October.
go to Phoenix
We
in
plan and
October.
pay for it now with this year's budget, but we plan the trip to be in October.
Oh,
I don't know, that would probably be stretching it.
Right.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right.
I was thinking more like, you could pay registration or you could pay
Right.
hotels up
Right.
front that, yeah, I think it would be hard.
That's what's fun about all this is like we decide, we build new things. Like this is like a work in progress and we're just figuring it out right now. So whatever it looks like, let's just do this.
Thank Commissioner Barrow.
Chris, did you have something to say?
My request is the closer the better, and the further out we plan, the better.
Good advice.
Yes.
Claire, do you have anything to add?
Nope, I don't think so.
All right, let's go back to the regular agenda. So our first, next discussion item will be the Beaver Street Aspen to Birch Pilot Infrastructure Repair Project. Scott? I'm introducing Scott Overton, the Public Works Division Director. And he was here a couple months ago with Rebecca Sayers, the Director of Pros. And let's hand this to Scott.
Yeah, good afternoon, commissioners, council member. Thanks for joining us. Other staff colleagues, thanks for being here. So Scott Overton, I serve as the city's public works director. So of course, oversee our streets section, which has everything related to a roadway, but also sidewalk, curb, gutter. And then Rebecca is our Parks and Recreation Open Space Director, and she, in her programs, has parks, which oversees our downtown street trees and some of our other amenities outside of the right of way. But about, a year ago, we really started talking in earnest about some of the difficulties we're having with the large trees in the downtown corridor. And if you were here in November, I kind of brought you really a rough outline of a general proposal. We found a half block of infrastructure on South Beaver Street between Birch and Aspen. And it's actually between Birch and the mid-block alley north of Aspen. And we've identified a short segment of a half block that we would like to try to provide some new infrastructure. So there's 4 large overgrown trees in the area. This is a picture of one they got me from last week. So clearly a terrible picture. But we wanted to make some recommendations. And if this snow pile were melted and gone, you would see a broken curb and you'd see a root ball and you'd see displaced pavers and a curb. And there are 4 locations on this half block that this condition has existed. And the goal for us in Public Works is to eliminate trip hazards in the pedestrian infrastructure, to improve our
I'm not
stormwater.
seeing the picture. Oh, there it is.
Oh, okay, you got it now? Commissioner Barrow?
To improve our
I have it
storm.
now, thank you.
to
Yes,
improve
I
our
have it.
stormwater structure, and then take a look at our brick pavers. This happens to be a fairly new corner that Dark Sky Brewing just simply completed their patio expansion. But as you can see, this was a good illustration of the mismatch in paver design, and we'll find this throughout downtown. And while it's not a stark contrast, what will happen in the next year or so, you'll start to see displacement between the pavers and the concrete surfaces. So this condition is really good right here. But if we were to walk just where this gentleman is here and further down the street, you'll find the curb at the tree wells, and the pavers have had some displacement. And we're seeing a lot of claims on this section in particular on the east side of the street in front of Aspie Watkins Diesel's former building, or Hubbard Horseman. For those of you who've been around a while, the former police station. So for us in Public Works, it's about trip hazards and walkable condition. And for those in pros, it's of course the tree health and the canopy. So when I was here in November, we had a kind of a simple blueprint. This is really the follow-up to that. And now what we want to kind of remind everyone of, if we're going to seek some direction from you, we are now at the next steps. We are going to remove 4 trees. We would rebuild the tree wells and the curbing, the associated infrastructure around the tree well. We would propose that we remove the pavers in between the tree wells, not at that new corner of the ADA ramps, but In between the tree wells, there's these large sections that are about 2 feet wide for the entire distance of the street. We would like to remove the pavers and replace it with a concrete stamp, and I'll get into the stamping in a moment. We repair any damaged sidewalk panels. These are gray broom finish panels, so they don't have color, they're not decorative, it's just the simple gray broom finish concrete. We would repair or replace any that in this segment. We would patch back our asphalt to match the new curb lines or the new gutter pans if installed. This group actually had a really good insight, as well as our Downtown Business Alliance, to take a look at our water valve boxes. Most of them are blue now, kind of a blue plastic, and they stand out. We have worked with Water Services to see if we can find either cast iron or alternative colors. They have assured us that they can find differing valve boxes, because we do think that we could maybe make it just look a little more aesthetically pleasing downtown, in the sidewalk locations where it might not be a bright blue lid facing you as you walk down the street. And then, of course, we would replant the trees in those 4 locations. There's one piece, it's the tree well aesthetic treatment around the perimeter of the tree. Lots of conversation about this, but there's also a lot of new pervious products that allow moisture to go down into the tree well for the tree health. But our parks group is still working on this piece, and it's the one outstanding piece that we're going to have to kind of follow up on one more time, as there are now a few different options and they can't quite come to a conclusion. This is a really good example of a large scale picture of this. I'll go back to that in a moment. We've proposed the stamp colored concrete with a herringbone pattern. So this is very similar to the image you saw on the ADA ramp, but we like this pattern. We think it fits well with downtown. This is the actual stamp, and then we would find a color that is very comparable to today's paver that's in place. This one's probably a little bit bright, but that one's clearly too gray. But they're 2 really good examples of that herringbone pattern on a little bit larger scale. But this is really the sample and the mold we would like to use.
Scott, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm curious, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So the pavers and whatever else you were talking about that you're going to replace this with, isn't that what's around the tree now? Or where are you planning on putting that stuff?
So around the tree today is typically a small 4-inch curb, and those curbs have generally been removed because the curb is being displaced with the root ball of the tree.
Right.
And then there used to be maybe in the 90s and early 2000s, kind of a metal cast iron grate around a small tree. Those grates have been since removed. The trees have simply just lifted all of that infrastructure. So the first step is to rebuild the infrastructure. We would eliminate that curb, but we would take our stamped concrete, and really where it's the 2-foot section that goes down the street, this image kind of shows it. And I should have had a picture of the blueprint, but we would replace this here all the way down to the alley section with the stamped concrete in lieu of the pavers. We would not get into this ADA corner quite yet.
Oh, okay.
And again, this is just a pilot location to kind of see if the infrastructure would work.
And what will exist around the tree once we plant the new trees?
So that is the one piece that I had mentioned that we're not quite, oh boy.
So the tree aesthetic treatment around.
How do I get back?
We don't know what.
Okay. That's enough. That's
Okay.
enough.
So right now, there's kind of a dirt patch that goes around, or maybe mulch.
Yeah.
We need to kind of nail this down, but the pervious surfaces have improved, and Parks is still working with us on trying to figure that piece out.
Thank you.
Problem. So again, that's kind of the stand. It looks very, very similar to pavers, and we think we're going to get better longevity, and clearly not the freeze thaw. So why? These are kind of the explanations we've been providing. Less maintenance than pavers. The freeze thaw cycles, we experience about 270 a year. So that will simply help with maintaining through a concrete infrastructure. Can be colored to match existing. And we think it still does have that same feel, that same look, without the risk of constant trip hazards. That's it on the hardscapes before I jump into trees. Trees, there were 3, and this is the #1 tree that has been chosen by our parks team. If we're Rebecca here tonight, she's unfortunately at the Parks and Rec Commission this evening. She would be presenting on this. I am not a tree arborist. I'm not the expert, but I do like trees. So Matt, maybe you can help us out here. We have 3 species that we use prevalently in the parks. This one is our most popular. That's probably the most well accepted in the community. You see them in a lot of our median infrastructure or in our BBB infrastructure that has been replaced in the last 10 or 12 years. It's very fast growing, has beautiful fall foliage, typically kind of grows upward versus out. So that helps us a bunch. And then this is about as big as they get. They're just not giant trees, 30 feet or so, maybe a 10-foot spread. And Parks has had really good luck with good success in Flagstaff with the autumn maple blaze. Another one that was considered, but we did not recommend for this location was the chokecherry. Size is good. There's a number of these in Wheeler Park that look beautiful. They have great blooms in the spring. For us, they grow a little bit too wide. We do have street sweeping operations and parking in these locations. So this was not recommended by Parks. And they also stain, those berries will stain our concretes. And so they felt that this was not a great suggestion, but wanted to make sure you were aware of it if you felt very strongly. The third is the honey locust. Lots of these in downtown. They get a little bit bigger, nice fall color, and clearly growth has been our problem in the past. And we're trying to avoid that because that's really the root cause of our issues today. No pun intended.
It was intended, that was intended.
Pretty good. Actually, Rebecca would be proud.
Yeah.
So really, we're returning to A, let you know that that's the paver selection. We would prefer to go with this tree. This was a long conversation we had with this group in November. We wanted to make sure that you were okay with us moving forward with this. Our next steps are now to, we got to meet up one more time with our downtown business partners. And now we are headed really into budget season, as Jana mentioned, and we will be soliciting our city fundings to get this project completed. We're in about the $50,000 range for completion, and that's for the half block segment. So fairly expensive project, but it's needed, and we want to make sure we're doing it right. Our hope is we can install a really nice project that represents what we'd like to see in future rebuilds and development, and we kind of keep steering them towards this location. And if we don't get something right, we will make those adjustments. But everyone wants to see what it looks like on the ground, and I think that's why this stretch was identified. So happy to get any feedback, take any questions, and our next step, of course, is EBA and some council discussion. So I'm happy to hear from you all.
So the 50,000 for half a block, that's just one tree then? Or is it
No.
all 4 trees?
No, that's the entire project. So the budget includes the tree removal, the curb replacements that are damaged, the sidewalk repairs and replacements, the actual paver removal and replacement of the new concretes. We have some asphalt repair in there. And then there's some irrigation work that we have to rework, and then planting of the new trees. So it's really turnkey engineer's estimate from Beaver to the half block for both sides of the street, minus the ADA ramps. We fell short of those. So
And I am gonna, remind you that we have funding for such a project within our tree wells, our urban forest, a couple of different line items that actually relate to this. It would not take up all of that funding.
And we wouldn't have to add another line.
That sounds reasonable to me for all that's getting done.
we are going to self-perform it in-house, or at least have a small contractor. I mean, it's not a giant scope, but we're just trying to get this one done and see if we can move it. But yeah, I know David had shared with us some funding opportunities that you all might have. I think there makes some sense. There's some synergy with some streets monies we have, and then Parks has some monies available. So we'll figure out the shell game of where the money's come from, but certainly be one that we're going to try to draw from a few different funds probably. But honestly, I don't even take care of that stuff. I just let staff figure out how we're going to pay for it. We'll deliver it.
Well, that's good. I mean, I remember when we were allocating money to those funds, just for purposes exactly like this. So you hit it right on the head there, or you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, our hard part is there's just about 300 downtown street trees, and we're really having a hard time coming to a conclusion of what everybody wants. And, cutting down a nice old growth tree is really, really tough. So we're hoping to demonstrate what it can look like with a little smaller tree and make it a little more easy on the infrastructure.
Yeah.
you don't mind, sir, I saw Reed had his hand up with a question, but.
I'm just curious, if this pilot plan works out, what's the long-term plan for doing the rest of downtown?
Yeah, we don't know. We back a napkin mathed it and it's about $20 million north and south side, east to west. So we're trying to find one segment that works, kind of go down that route. But the DBA is very interested in that question. And I think they're now revisiting what an improvement district would look like if they were to re-up what they had done in the 90s. Don't know if they'll go that route, but clearly we don't have the funding for the entire downtown corridor, but we've all agreed that we have to start somewhere. And it's really become, out of our group, we're seeing too many claims with tripping hazards and we want to make it better. So if we can at least demonstrate what it should look like, we'll figure out a way to get the other 19.59. But it could be a long game to get every block completed.
And what exactly is BPAC's role in terms of the aesthetic? Is that the stamped concrete, the color of the concrete, or what? Because it sounds very infrastructure.
It is very infrastructure, really. It's the stamped concrete and the tree selection from an aesthetic point of view, not from a practical, point of view.
Would you like to see something?
No, I was just curious about, because it seems like, we do murals and we do sculptures and and then here we're doing, which is fine, right? I mean, clearly it's needed if the city's being sued.
The beautification includes streetscapes and includes concrete.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say just the most significant part of our funding and our budgeting is beautification. Somewhere in the tune of more than 80% what we do is for beautification purposes. And from a trucker's perspective, I think you found the right alley to start this on because we clip the top of those trees all the time. And we have to drive in the middle of the street in order to not run into.
Yeah, if I can add, Mr. Commissioner, I think really this is for awareness, so you know what's going on. We're trying to hit a number of commissions as well. That we think there is a direct correlation between some of the downtown infrastructure and your group and your charge. But I think more than anything, we just don't want anyone to be surprised. Obviously it's hard to remove trees and when you see pavers coming out, what are you replacing it with? So it's just a high interest project. We're really wanting to make sure we cover some ground and visit with all of our commissions that might be impacted for awareness and not have as many surprises for our council members. Trying.
Can we see the photos again of the
Sure.
sidewalk, the pavers?
I'll let you run it, Greg.
Gotcha. Folks on the call, do you have any questions or comments?
Nothing from me, thanks.
The actual photo of like where it has the dark sky corner.
Oh, yeah.
The sidewalk.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been downtown 100 times, a million times, and I'm trying to remember, is there a reason that there's like this 2-foot like paver section with regular concrete? Is there talk of like doing the whole concrete stamped, or I mean, does it aesthetically look like, is it pleasing to have it that way?
We might have been the only one in the room back then. I think it's just an aesthetic treatment between a pedestrian sidewalk and a kind of a parkway.
It's kind of to delineate the sidewalk from we call it furnishing strip.
It looks good. Yeah, next time you're walking around downtown, take a look. You'll see gray in front of all the businesses, and then you'll see this strip of pavers. But we have not explored if we just replace the entire sidewalk with a paver stamp.
So it's gonna be a separate piece of concrete that gets stamped.
Yeah, the footprint would be identical. We would leave the gray in place because it's pedestrian, and we would just simply replace the pavers with the stamped concrete paver. So still would look the same when it was all done.
Where was the area that was gonna be, you said something about brushed concrete?
I was just making the reference to the gray sidewalk panel, the broom finish. So where you see gray from corner to corner, that would still remain gray broom finish.
But were there places being replaced or fixed or something?
There's a couple panels that have some displacement or maybe some grinding. We try to maintain those as we go, but mostly around the tree wells, they've lifted or they've created maybe a slope condition. So we would, once the tree was removed, we would take those panels out and replace them to be flat. And when you walk around, you'll really notice it.
I feel like I have noticed the
Yeah.
concrete. I guess that's why I had in my mind this vision of like all of that concrete coming up. And so I didn't know if there was
Right.
the need to discuss, are we considering all the options? But sounds like what you have.
And the 2-foot thing is gonna have herringbone, so it's gonna match right there.
Yeah, yeah, we would propose make it all herringbone and I guess there's really no concern. We could go either way if there's a preference. That might be a good thing to weigh in on, but we do like that other stamp. I think everyone just liked it a little bit better so far. If you can go one more slide, Craig, it's that next one that was on that. That one, yeah, but there's a better picture even. Shoot, sorry, Craig. No.
Mhm.
That one.
There it is.
A real common, you've seen it around shopping centers, private residences, I'm sure. Lots of different stamps, so that's the latest, that's where we're at on the project and just a quick brief update.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you for your time.
So the next 3 items are yours. Did you wanna break for the introductions?
Yes, I will, so I would like to introduce Reed Miller. He's the senior transportation engineer. I will just give a little bit of just a preface to Reed's presentation. As I mentioned in the council presentation on the Downtown Connection Center, the artists for that project proposed as a rotating project for local artists, art crosswalks. It's not the first time art crosswalks though have come up in the city of Flagstaff nor, nationwide. There are lots of issues surrounding this, but when we entered into these discussions, Flagstaff did not have a policy per se about art crosswalks, and it did follow the federal guidelines. And the federal guidelines are very restrictive about what is allowed in a crosswalk. And it ultimately is what I would call a risk management question. If a city doesn't follow the federal guidelines and there's an accident in a crosswalk, then a lawsuit may be more viable against the city. So, but yet cities across the country have been going against the federal guidelines and been doing our crosswalks. And some of them have started doing studies. Seattle's done some studies, and then Bloomberg came out with a more expansive study, not doing just art crosswalks, but other art treatments and intersections. And those initial studies are finding actually that art crosswalks are actually seem to be as safe and maybe safer. But the federal government hasn't taken this up. They haven't changed their guidelines. And so we, though, with all of our research, went to traffic risk management and legal. And Reed did a lot more research. And he had a policy that they've developed that we think will work. And
Glad to hear that.
Reed is here to present it to you. It's been, I think, before the Transportation Commission. It's making its way through the various different commissions that need to have their buy-in and will ultimately, the final shape, go to city council maybe in April or May.
I think so.
Okay, so with that, that's my preface. It's not my full advocacy speech. Reed's heard it before. But that's my mellow preface, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. So yes, I think you got a copy of the policy itself. That's all I was going to go over. Then I got to thinking now, put together a PowerPoint presentation, which I gave to Traffic Commission back in December, and I thought it'd be easier just to walk through that, at least for me anyway. So that's what my intent is. So for the background, the non-standard artistic crosswalks incorporate designs or multicolored treatments between the existing white lines of a marked crosswalk. The city has received requests to add artistic features to existing crosswalks that has come perhaps from the general public, clearly from Jana, and I think the mayor, the former mayor, threw a fair item.
Yes.
The requests, however, do not conform to the Federal Highway Administration Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is recognized as the national standard for traffic control. According to FHWA, crosswalk treatments should be subdued colors, subdued color treatments between legally marked transverse crosswalk lines that are devoid of retro-reflective properties and do not diminish the effectiveness of legally required white transverse pavement markings used to establish the crosswalk. The purpose of this policy is to allow the installation of non-standard crosswalks while providing requirements for its design and maintenance that do not compromise safety. Several cities have created policies allowing businesses, organizations, and communities the ability to request non-standard artistic crosswalks. And we did some research, and these are a list of the cities that we looked into that have policies that are similar to what we're proposing. In particular, City of Phoenix, we liked especially well. I've been in contact with a traffic engineer down there. And our proposed policy really mimics what they've ended up with. Now we get into the criteria for the crosswalk policy. The crosswalk must be in a location where there is an existing marked crosswalk and where a vehicle is already required to stop either due to a traffic signal, pedestrian hybrid beacon, or a stop sign.
With a pedestrian hybrid beacon, is that like a crossing?
I believe that you'd see an example of that on Lone Tree, Butler Avenue at Humphreys.
What about, the one where a pedestrian presses a button and then it flashes I call that hot crossing.
That, yeah, help me out, Jeff, that is slightly different. There is a distinction between the two.
Yeah, so I didn't introduce myself. I'm Jeff Bowman. I work with Reed Transportation Engineering. You're good.
Sorry.
No, I just wanted to introduce myself before I jumped in.
Yes.
So a pedestrian hybrid beacon is what you're calling a hawk. So that's a red signal
Okay,
pedestrian crossing as opposed to a yellow warning.
okay.
So they are different. We have both of them in Flagstaff, mostly yellow beacons.
Mhm.
We have one PHB on West Street. There's one on West 66, but that's a dot.
66 also.
Okay, okay. Or
Now
a
the-
stop sign, yes.
I'm sorry, what?
Or a stop
Or
sign.
something.
And by the way, please interrupt me anytime with any questions you may have. The crosswalk must be at a location with lower traffic volumes, widths of no more than 3 lanes, speed limits of 25 miles per hour, and where the pavement is in good condition within 100 feet of in each direction, where there are no programmed pavement preservation projects within the next 2 years. An existing high visibility crosswalk cannot be converted to a standard crosswalk and shall meet City of Flagstaff engineering standards. The style that we use, and this graphic to the right shows several crosswalk styles. The city uses the graphic first column, second one down, called gapped and halved zebra markings. I wish I had a mouse here so I could point, but maybe I can do that with that. All right, good, thanks. So this is the City of Flagstaff's standard for marked crosswalks. You'll see this style right above it. Right, yeah, the parallel lines throughout town, but those are typically what ADOT uses on their streets. Milton, for instance, is a NA dot street. So let's move on to the application. You want to apply for one of these non-standard crosswalks, the city will review the proposed design, form a field review of the proposed location. Once the design is conditionally approved by the city, the applicant will be notified. The applicant must submit a final design on a scaled plan drawing with dimensions and identify the existing pavement type. The final design plan and material specification will be submitted to and receive pre-approval by the city traffic engineer, Jeff. And the applicant shall hire a qualified contractor to obtain the required permits and perform the installation per city engineering standards for pavement markings.
Now, Reed, you made this policy, this draft policy, with that idea that outside people may apply, like, an outside group. Just for the commissions, we're proposing that, for our project, that beautification and arts and sciences program actually run it. So therefore, we would review the design with traffic before we even put a call to artists out. We would get the approval for the location. We would probably, in coordination with traffic, hire the vendor who's going to do the application separately from the artist. So we would have some of those checks. It wouldn't be the applicant doing those parts. It would be our staff doing those parts. And I think that will ensure a much smoother process for, what our program has in mind. Is our crosswalk.
And I
We
think,
would be the applicant.
And we would be the applicant. So in a way, the city, the applicant, we're all part of the same city. But I think by having the location approved ahead of time, maybe having a list of vendors approved with traffic ahead of time, and then we don't have to, once we start asking artists to apply, we don't have to stop for those steps. We'll have those steps worked out with traffic. Just like we did a MOU and things for the traffic signal cabinets. This would be more involved than that, but that's a process that we would work out with traffic so that, but once we got the artists on board, we can, keep them out of that. We'll have done all that.
so in any event, in most cases, you would be the applicant.
Yes, exactly. No, for what we're gonna do, we are gonna be the applicant, yes, pretty much. So,
Make it simpler.
I know, it'll make it a little easier.
Okay, let's see, where did applicant shall hire qualified, okay. Design. The design shall not infringe upon existing crosswalk markings. So we want the existing crosswalk marking to maintain its integrity. Shall not mimic official pavement markings or other traffic control devices. Include words, logos, advertising, insensitive images or three-dimensional designs. And shall not create distractions or confusion. The design shall be within the gaps of the existing markings and include a 2-inch black margin gap between the crosswalk markings and any design elements. If more than one crosswalk at an intersection is being considered, it shall have a consistent style to create a unified aesthetic.
Who decides on whether the art creates a distraction or confusion? That seems subjective.
It is going to be a little bit subjective. And that'll be up to, I think, the traffic engineer and city staff to determine that.
So I need to have crosswalk, so the artist designs makes a proposal, obviously this group gives this recommendation, whether it goes forward, so you always have an aesthetic voice. But it would need then this extra step to go through traffic review. Probably after BPAC does its recommendation.
I guess I'm just intrigued by that language because isn't art always sort of supposed to be eye-catching to some extent rather than something that you ignore? And so wouldn't it then be by nature of an artistic design distracting? I mean, perhaps I'm being too literal, but I just wonder if,
I want to create distractions for whom? Is it the driver? or
For the driver.
pedestrian that you're most
My
concerned
thought
about?
is for the driver. The crosswalks are there to alert the driver and communicate to the pedestrian, but more importantly, I think to alert the driver, this is a pedestrian crosswalk. So we don't want to create distractions there.
Although you want to attract attention to the crosswalk, that's why the white lines are there to begin with, right? So I think that's what, obviously attracting attention to the crosswalk per se is something that the white lines are there for, right?
Yes,
So,
so we don't want to take away from that with too much of a distraction. I'm
yeah,
kind of winging it here.
I know you are.
And I just, and I would maybe relate it to, but not us, but other places that put roundabout art in. It's become something that's, we've got people running down the middle of the street to take pictures. We don't want, and we won't know until we do this, but
right,
we don't want a crosswalk where people are like, oh, this is gonna be great. We're gonna lay down and take some pictures on this thing because it's so cool. Or whatever, it looks like bodies, I mean, we've seen these on the internet, there's all sorts of things.
Well,
So I don't know that we can define it at this
Of
point,
course,
but.
one of the simplest zebra stripe crosswalks in the world is Abbey Road. And believe me, the number of people who
That's
want
a
to take,
different reason.
yeah, for a different reason. So it can't just be a plain white crosswalk.
Right.
It causes a distraction. I dare anyone to try to get that picture. It's not possible.
Can you, I'm having trouble visualizing the included 2-inch black margin gap between the crosswalk markings and
Yeah.
any design element.
Where does that come from?
So that's maintenance, because we're gonna have to continue to maintain the white markings. And so that's what these other cities have said, is give us a little bit of room between the art and the white. So that when because we're not, Scott will tell you, when we do white markings, I mean, they're not perfect.
Yeah.
They're extruding plastic across the street and look at them, they're kind of messy.
So what is
I
the
think that's
width
what it's about.
between the white markings? I'm curious then if you have 2 inches taken away on either side, how much?
Yeah, so the bar pairs are 8 inches. The white bars are 8 inches and then the gap is 8 inches in the middle. So that's pretty tight. The gap between the pairs of white is variable based on the road. So typically, we're trying to put one on the lane line, one down the middle, and then one on the next lane line. Lanes are like 12 feet.
What if,
So
just
but they all vary.
thinking off the top of my head, what if, while the art is in the crosswalk, our program agreed to also maintain the white lines? Could we put it right up to it then?
there's that, show
think
that
so,
picture.
yeah. I mean, I think that is the reason that I understand for the gap. So yeah, I think you were gonna take the whole thing. Scott would be happy.
Wasn't there a photo at the beginning of this with some examples of art that had
Color.
the color, it was like yellow and black and it was art within the crosswalk, or yeah, that actually. Yeah. I guess there's no 2 inches there, but. So we would have to have 2 inches between each of those bars.
That's the way we have it set up, but I like the idea that if you're taking the whole maintenance of the whole thing, and that might be easier when you order materials anyways.
Yeah,
In some cases, just
That's
that
what I
one
was
big
thinking.
piece.
so could we maybe, when you guys look to pass this policy, give us some leeway
Let's put
there?
flexibility in there, yeah.
Put
No,
some
that's fine.
flexibility in there about those 2 inches, because I think if we're gonna, do the art in the crosswalk, we probably want the white refreshed anyway. We don't want like be working with the old white that's maybe updated. We're probably gonna want to redo the whole crosswalk.
That makes sense.
And-
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
So is it a Flagstaff
Is it a policy that it has to be those zebra crosswalks?
Well, we went to those zebras because they're high visibility and they have better safety performance than the two parallel lines. And so we can imagine that, yeah, people would love to switch it to the parallel lines since it gives you more space for art.
Yes.
But then we're degrading the visibility of the crosswalk and trying to avoid that.
But is it possible we're increasing the visibility of the crosswalk, even if it's the
Possible.
parallel lines, which is no sense?
Possible, we haven't gotten there yet.
Is it, this is a big win to get us this far, so I wanna, but I think there's many that are just parallel, even in
The state
City
does
Flagstaff.
those, yeah, we don't do those.
Well, I was just thinking
I saw those too.
I was thinking at Mike's Pike, where it dead ends into Phoenix Avenue, but Mike's Pike,
I don't know.
I think it's just 2 lines.
Maybe there's a few remnants.
There may be some old ones out there.
So if we target an old one.
I like that.
Devious I am.
We can change it.
I think it might be good to have an understanding of how often those typically get maintained.
I would like to know
And the cost.
because we also know that the art won't last that long. So we're gonna want to rotate them and either refresh the existing design or just come in with a new artist and rotate them. And so I would like to know what you consider a standard lifetime
For the white.
for the white.
And how long of a duration would you think before you rotated?
With anything in traffic world, it all depends, but there's over 800 crosswalks that are striped in the city of Flagstaff today. So there's a lot. We generally shoot to get 75 or 100 per year. So they clearly fall behind. We would love to do them every 4 years. I
Okay.
think that's kind of our target. But getting all of those is difficult. So we try to get the higher priority ones, intersections that are near schools,
Right.
high pedestrian type areas. But there's some that need some love that we just can't get to as frequently. I don't have anything to add, Jeff.
Well,
Watch that data.
we might be able to take 1 or 2 off the hands.
Well, I think it'd be nice to have the option for us to maintain them, but I wouldn't necessarily want the policy that says if we beautify them, then we maintain them.
Well, we were always anticipating ours being a rotating project, just because we know that if we put an art crosswalk in there, traffic's not gonna maintain an art crosswalk.
Right.
And it's gonna need to be replaced probably within 3 or 4 years. I was maybe even thinking 2.
It depends where you're at, yeah.
So if we're already having to redo the art, which is gonna be much more intricate than the white, it doesn't, as long as we have the art in there.
Yeah, I'm thinking of cost.
Yeah, I know, but that's gonna be,
I see no
color is-
commissioner trips once these are.
Not in October.
I'll just add one little point just for, and this is not that big a deal, but the parallel lines are also placed to not be in the wheel paths, so they last longer than the zebras. You have the zebra stripes, right? We put them, like I was describing, on the lane lines where people don't drive, and the oil slick where people don't drive. And so that makes them last longer too. But I think you're in the right ballpark, 2 or 3 years, and they're gonna look pretty rough. Look pretty rough. You're gonna wanna do something.
And snowplows take them up and turning movements. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a really, we saw that with the
Abrasion.
Aspen mural.
yeah.
Difficult infrastructure.
Commissioner McGrath, any other statements?
So if you're gonna ask me, yes. So this maybe is a question for ADOT, but ADOT, those parallel lines are okay for ADOT. But
They don't care about their pedestrians as much.
I won't argue with that.
I'll make ground on that.
Yes. Okay.
You're biting your tongue right now. There's so many cool ones that don't have the white lines.
I know, that's what I'm like, I think that they, yeah.
It's just a tough spot for us. when we-
No, I understand that.
Visibility, which we know has better performance for drivers can see it from a greater distance, like it's better performance, and for us to go potentially backwards with the two parallel lines, it's not
Potential impact.
Yeah, I understand. But the art is not retroreflective, so at night it would be backwards. You would have less visibility from the streets.
I think this next point is worth discussing, because you might be liking how it's gonna make the crosswalk stand out, I'm not sure. But the approved crosswalk location, the city will add a 12-inch border and refresh the existing crosswalk markings if needed. So I'm gonna go back to that graphic. See, the idea is that we would add a border at the top and bottom of these parallel lines. Kind of framing the whole thing.
Is that then kind of the parallel lines thing?
This one's a good one.
It's like the ladder, but it's like the ladder, but spaced out.
It becomes the ladder, yeah,
It becomes a ladder.
yeah.
Not much room.
You do the high visibility with.
Yeah.
The
It's a
ladder.
graph in half.
But if we had that increased visibility from the parallel lines, potentially you could sacrifice some of the visibility from the zebra and wind up in the same place that you would have been already.
Moving along.
At the approved crosswalk location, okay.
Yeah, that one's probably flexible,
Yeah,
but that first bullet, I would say, good discussion.
and then,
Good thing to think about.
okay. But you want thermoplastic, right?
Yes, the design material should consist of preformed thermoplastic. Material should be provide a non-slip surface for pedestrians and be non-retro-reflective. And the city traffic and engineer will have the final approval of all designs. Already mentioned that. Cost, all costs associated with the installation of the crosswalk will be the responsibility of the applicant, including permit fees and temporary traffic control necessary to make the installation. And here's the,
Are these two images samples of what might be approved?
I think the bottom right is a fairly good example, although the longitudinal or the transverse lines there's a gap in between them for our standards. But other than that, it's going to be essentially like that, yes. The city shall be responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the existing high visibility crosswalk and the 12-inch border. And the city will notify the requester when maintenance is needed. This includes fading or chipped sections. The applicant shall be responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the artistic crosswalk portions due to normal wear and tear, resurfacing and/or snow removal. And shall be responsible for restoring the crosswalk to its original condition if they no longer wish to maintain the artistic crosswalk. So that is the end of my little presentation. Had some discussion, anything else?
This might be a silly question, but how is the applicant supposed to take care of snow removal?
I think that was a misunderstanding. We're not looking for them to take care of snow removal. We were just pointing out that snow removal is going to take its toll, wear and tear on these.
Gotcha.
So right now, all the examples we've seen are examples in cities that have a policy that says you can have artistic crosswalks. However, they are not artistic crosswalks that are okay with the federal government, because the federal government has a blanket statement that says you cannot have artistic crosswalks. Is that correct?
You can have them, but their criteria is that the colors have to be subdued colors.
Okay.
You can.
And we're stepping out
You
beyond
can
that.
do that brick pavement like is across Aspen, right by Lake for the Train to Heritage
Right.
Square.
Right,
And you know how it mimics pavers?
right.
You can have that under the federal guidelines. So that's the muted color that they like. And it
Like
kind of
all
a traditional
solid.
pattern. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So we're stepping out beyond that with and establishing criteria that we think will be safe.
Do you see, or have you heard being talked to the other cities that there's like an increase in litigation from pedestrians walking that have incidents in those because of that federal guideline not being complied with?
Have I seen that?
From talking to other cities about this?
No, I have not gotten that deep into my research as far as that goes.
But the people you talked to, nobody had problems.
Yes.
They had to remove them. They were all good to
Yeah.
go so far. So.
And like I said, I think there is the Bloomberg study that's out there. I haven't read it in detail. I did pass it on. And then Seattle, I know has, because they've been doing it for years and they've had less accidents in those crosswalks than others.
Excellent, excellent.
And this is essentially the policy. It's ready to move forward.
My next step is to go back to Traffic Commission and inform them of our discussion and let them know of
Yeah.
the comments you've made.
Yeah, so basically, I'm just asking, can we get rid of the 2 inches if we, will maintain the white as well?
Yes. I made note of that. And then take it on from there to council.
Do we want to find out the cost of the maintenance before we say we'll maintain it?
We have them.
Okay.
I promise you, sir, first.
Good question.
Can you remind me the intersections or the crossings that they can be, has to have a stop sign, the yellow flashing lights?
So anywhere where the vehicle's is required to stop anyways. So a stop sign or traffic signal, red crossing. So not in block where there's the traffic control device.
Or visibility would be more important,
Most important, yeah, because you got it.
but the car has to stop anyway.
Right.
For what we're proposing here.
Yes, yeah, so we're saying anywhere where the car has to stop.
So it might be an opportunity to get a little bolder with our designs.
Actually, right.
I'm just, I'm thinking.
Yeah, this will be fun. It makes me
Yeah.
really nervous that it says the city traffic engineer. So that,
Well,
We're
lots
getting
of
this figured out.
conversations about our, yes.
right, yeah, I'm gonna rely
Send it down,
on
and
you.
we'll stamp it, we'll prove something on your behalf.
Absolutely.
So then with the policy, the way it's gonna work in practice is that we will apply for a crosswalk and then we have to do a call and then we have to get the design because they have to approve the design. So we actually won't be approved for the project until we have already issued the call for artist, correct? And approved their design.
Yes, I mean, like I said, we'll take care of the applicant parts as far as the location is concerned. Make sure, it complies, and, so we'll take care of that before we issue a call.
Right.
But then, yes, we have to issue the call, we have to get the designs, you guys have to recommend the design on an aesthetic basis.
Right.
And then I'm gonna have to take it to, traffic engineering.
Right, and then they could reject it and we would go back to the artist and say tweak this, tweak that in order to
Right.
get it approved.
Yeah, we would see if they could tweak it, and if not, that's why we always, recommend also having an alternate. And we would do that in this case as well.
Is traffic gonna tell us to go Rothko and just paint it all black?
I don't think so.
We'll have Scott do his herringbone.
That's the pattern of this.
Any other questions or comments, folks? Folks on the call?
Just a really quick question. I think I might have missed this or missed this when you were talking about it, but so is it the idea that roads that what city of Flagstaff has most of the jurisdiction on, is that where they're gonna go? Like, do you think we'll have a problem going over state roads and stuff like that? Did you mention that?
We're not gonna be doing state roads. I'm not even considering them.
Okay.
I'm not gonna go ask ADOT for
they're
anything.
awesome.
You know, I'm
That's
gonna look
great.
at the location
Great.
first that the artist recommended for the Downtown Connection Center.
Okay.
That's gonna be a pilot project. And then we're gonna learn everything that we
Build
need
out
to
from
learn
there.
for the pilot, just like we did with the traffic signal cabinets. We did just 2 locations at first, and we're just gonna keep rolling them out every year. So we'll get our feet wet with one, and then we'll see if we wanna do any more.
Thank you.
Great, and no comments or questions for me. Just I guess my only comment being this, I think this is great. I'm really excited about this. So
Yeah, people do love them.
they do.
Anyway, I would like to thank both Jeff and Reed for having to listen to me advocate for, I think I've been at this
It's
almost
been
a
a
year.
slow process.
It's been a year, yes. So thank you for all your patience and all your time, and especially going down to Phoenix and doing all the research, and, really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Tenacity.
Yeah.
Next.
Janet, do we want to introduce the 2 commissioners to the new staff?
Yes, this is a very good time. Commissioner Zegler, Commissioner McGrath, we did not get.
Thank you.
The interview.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you?
Hi, we've emailed, let's see.
Just give a brief introduction.
I'm a Leo, I like long walks on. I've been on the commission for a year and a half, a little more than a year and a half. I work at NAU with the students and undergrad research, and creative activity, and I'm your board.
I'm Matt McGrath. I think, did we come on the
We
commission at the
same
same
day.
time? So a year and a half, just like Tina. And work for the US Forest Service here in town.
Kristen, do you want to say anything about yourself?
I'm also a Leo, and I miss the beach.
Yes.
I'm Kristen. I've been in nonprofit arts for 20 years. And most recently at the Museum of Northern Arizona, I did their marketing and PR. I coordinated all of their festivals, public events, etc. And I've been in Flagstaff for, this will be 10 years. And I'm very excited to be in a new position with Team Flagstaff.
Quite a team you put together.
I know.
Can't tell you how great. it is. All right, so
Moving forward is the BPAC location for meetings.
So this is, again, I'm going to actually turn this over to Commissioner Garcia, but he did request this item at the January BPAC meeting. I will just tell you that I did reach out to the city clerk, and the main thing is they, want hybrid meetings, but council chambers are available. It will require some extra training of staff in order to, use it, but I didn't get any indication that there was a conflict with another group for our time. But this right now, we're not really taking a vote on it. I think it was just a discussion of would we even want to consider it, and what are the qualitative differences between meeting and council chambers, which I will tell you, I only saw once. It was my very, very first commission meeting. March of 2000, and then the pandemic shut down. So I didn't really get to experience it multiple times. I only got to experience it once, and then it was completely hybrid. And then, of course, since August, we've been here.
Is that where you presented them? Is that the same space where you just did your presentation?
Yes,
It was
Okay,
very much like a council.
yeah, that was
the same space.
Yeah.
yeah, that was council. Yes.
Was Chair Cruz
So-
get a gavel? Is what
So
I
you
wanted to
guys.
I know, he's not using this right now, I don't think.
I mean, there's a physical difference. You're not gathered around a table. You guys would be higher, and we would and the staff would like be presenting at a podium. So it'd be like presentations to city council.
Any discussion about, I personally like a more intimate space. I like sitting around a table and I like being able to swivel and see people in the face, but I am certainly open to what the majority wants.
Like I said, this is just discussion today. We're not voting.
So I wrote a couple of things so I didn't forget. I wanted to discuss this for a couple of reasons. First, I feel it brings a different vibe to the decision-making process. And since you guys don't understand what I mean when I say vibe, I tried to articulate it a little bit more formally. So bear with me. This is where the art side of being a BPAC member comes in, I think, because we're going to have to kind of use that imagination and belief system, which can't necessarily be defined all the time. Well, a bit more formal, and that is not what I'm going for when I ask for this at all. But it does bring us more of a sense of importance and an air of nuance that when literally seated in the space where many impactful decisions have been made by very influential folks over decades locally, it can inspire the same dignity and honor given to the decisions that we make by having an appropriate environment to make those decisions in. Not to say that tons of decisions weren't, importantly made in this room as well, and this space as well, but the space was literally constructed for this purpose in mind. And it is, in my opinion, a disservice to the taxpayers that we are not using it in its full capacity for that purpose. Even the feng shui and design of the room, I believe, adds to an air of qualitativity in that qualitativity quotient that was discussed on the agenda. The past decisions that hold a breadth of gravity and gravitas to them, theoretically, also hold the presence of spirit that can linger in effect and affect other decisions made within that same space and can transcend through the ether in a way similar to osmosis. This comes from a dimension that is not always tangible, but comes from a space of belief and that there is more to this world than what we can, observe mathematically or scientifically. Reason number two, I also would like to see our meetings viewable to the city's, on the city's website for public consumption. The city of Flagstaff use this place more excuse me, I don't even know what I wrote. But I think that what I'm trying to say is I want more accessibility to the public. I, being somebody who's been to city council meetings for the past 15 years, still don't actually like to come to other commission meetings when they're in this room. It feels weird to come and sit in the corner, and it just doesn't feel the same. When they're in that room, I feel like I'm part of like I have a space. I know where I belong. I have a time to be in that space. And I think it's important, and I'm going to do a fair later that discusses this, but I think it's also important that we start getting ourselves, back in front of the public, through the stream. And when I view this stream from this room, it's hard for me to keep up with it. It's hard for me to stay interested in it. But when it's in that room, it's easy. I mean, they can focus on the people that are talking. They can also put the thing up. And staff before this time of COVID didn't have too many problems putting that together, even though I think it was outsourced at that time. Somebody else put the contraption together. I would hope that, if it's not too hard to do, that maybe it's something that we could consider. And this isn't just, we also had an idea back in the day to where we could take our meetings to other places, to art spaces and things like that. So it's just another way to kind of get out of this room a little bit and to spread our wings and to see what, the change of environment does to our thinking system. Because sometimes you go to the same place, you just kind of get stuck in the same, groove, or the difference between, a groove and a rut is how long you're stuck there. I don't want to be stuck in that groove in that rut, but I do want to be groovy. So, that's my thoughts on it.
So, Commissioner Garcia, would you see this being a permanent move, or you mentioned going to different places? So you're saying sometimes being there and sometimes being in here, or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that in so many ways, the Beautification and Public Art Commission has been, trendsetters when it comes to a few different practices that have taken place within our meetings, the way we do things, the way we get other commissions involved, all type of stuff. And this is just another way to get us back to where we once were, in that space that belongs to this kind of conversation. I mean, seeing that thing empty when I walk in, I just feel like the people that designed that room for these things, like rolling over in their grave. But yeah, I could see it as either temporary or full-time. We can see how it works, then we can branch out from there. We can come back here to visit or whatever,
Do all of the other commissions meet in there? Where do the other commissions meet?
Somebody in the conference room adjacent to it. That's where my other one is now,
Small conference room downstairs.
adjacent to the council chambers.
Not a lot of people have gone back since pandemic. But I don't have a full answer.
I think it's either here or most of them, I think, are here or over adjacent chambers. Not in the chambers, but that conference room, at that weird angle of the table. Yeah, this one's much better.
I would add that when I served on another commission before the pandemic, we did meet in that room. It gave the vibe a little more gravitas. That was kind of a good thing to have. I would like the idea.
Yeah, Commissioner Garcia, I think that was really well put. I didn't have like any strong feelings before, but you convinced me. I think that's a great idea.
I have said at the council, whatever, for another commission, I felt awkward. I didn't think that there was particular gravitas for it. I thought the council belonged there, people who were elected, not necessarily me. That's maybe just a me thing. I like the idea of not just meeting here, but taking it on the road. That to me sounds like a great idea.
Mhm. And I mean, before you shared everything, I would have said, I feel the same way. I would feel very awkward sitting in that space. But I think you bring up some good points as far as like it changing the tone and just the decisions. And it's always good to have a new environment. My biggest concern is the idea of staff having to present at a podium. Honestly, it makes me feel like we're looking down on them, which you are, if anything, you should be the one sitting up there and us sitting down, listening and presenting to you. So I don't want to create any kind of like environment where anything that creates less work. That's my concern.
Yeah. I would advocate for platform shoes, if that's all it is. But I think my biggest one is, I can't wait to hear from Mike, but it's just that accessibility to the public when we do start going back to that. They just have all the camera angles already down and stuff. And, unless, I don't know, because I don't even know like how I'm supposed to be speaking to these mics and like, where is the camera?
Yeah,
The camera here is all the way over there. So
It's
all
all-
right.
it's all the way over there.
Yeah, but the mics work good.
one thing
Yeah.
I know that
Cameras.
maybe Commissioner Farrell could, chime in on is, I don't know if this staff, if the city would be able to incorporate a different kind of camera, because they have what they call the owl at Creative Flagstaff, which actually then sits in the middle and it has cameras all the way around, and it's made for a conference room. And when you're speaking, then you're shown on the camera. And it's better technology than this, which I have to admit, because I sometimes attend staff meetings remotely, like Commissioner Barrow and Commissioner Johnson are, and I don't get to see people's faces, and it's just a view of the room. So when you're remote, this room is awkward on the camera. Whereas
They're all very tiny.
yeah, we're very tiny. You don't really see our faces. You're not, really interacting. I think it's different when people are in the room. But people who are attending virtually don't get a good view. That is for certain.
I'll say
But
sorry.
you could either fix that with technology here or go to a different space.
Yes, we use the owl at work, and it works great. It's like $1,000, but One thing I had thought, Commissioners, yeah, I had thought of, is the inclusiveness of the public coming. I totally get that. I was like, oh yeah, I get that. When somebody comes in and they're like, oh, do I sit at the table with them or do I sit against the wall with my back to them? That resonated with me for sure.
If we're in budget season, why can't we just ask the city to buy an owl for this room?
Oh, yes.
I mean,
I
that's,
mean, it would be good for everybody.
I
the
think,
commission.
Anthony, I think what you said was really very important, and I certainly agree, especially with regard to accessibility. If we're a commission that represents the city of Flagstaff, I guess I would agree. And my concern is like this sort of, I don't know, power dynamic or difference. What I like about this space, I said earlier, I like to be able to swivel and see everybody. And I really like the fact that we come together as a group of colleagues without a hierarchy or a sense of power or privilege. You know, the power dynamic, I think, with us sitting around in a space, sort of like looking down and having people make, that to me just doesn't feel very comfortable. It's not the way I want to represent the city of Flagstaff in terms of my position as a BPAC commissioner. But I'm certainly happy to go with what the majority wants without a problem at all.
To speak to that, what we did in the past is we just had the staff sit there on the dais with us, just kind of, we were all on the dais, pretty much, except for when it came time for them to present and that, because there's a space for a presentation and a space for us to sit. But they all, they just sat up there with us.
At the rate,
Yeah.
I don't know the terms. We were at the council sit.
I don't,
We would fill up.
I only attended the once,
At the
but
triangle.
Eliza and I
Oh,
were back.
yeah, you sat where the city attorney usually sits. I remember that now.
Yeah,
But,
there's no room really on the dais.
yeah, prior to that, when Mark was here, he was always up there with us.
Oh,
But I mean, so we can incorporate that. We could add 2 seats up there for the staff or.
Folding chairs or?
I'll sacrifice my chair.
No, you're right, we used to.
Yeah,
We would sit up there with the program managers. But that's back when council also sat there and then city manager sat up there as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was a policy change or what the reasoning was, but now, yeah, city manager even sits at the other table.
Yeah. And throughout this change, we can reformulate it and see how it feels. Maybe we'll all sit at the
Can
bottom.
I ask, and I don't want this to sound cynical because it's not. I'm just, since I've been here, and I, again, unfortunately started at the beginning of the pandemic, so it's been a weird couple of years. But how many times do we get public requests? And do you think somehow being in council get more public requests in some way? I mean, it's just, I haven't gotten one in 3 years. So,
I think it's a streaming that he wants to be able to do.
There's that.
Streaming and then the recording that then would be more easily viewed in terms of the meetings.
well, we do put the recordings now. That's something that we started to do this year, on the, on our website. I don't know if, even if we did it, will we be streaming live?
I have a question that I
Yeah.
don't have
know
to
if we
answer
would
that.
be,
Well, it's
Because I
it's
think
not
that costs
necessarily,
money. I think that costs money.
yeah, it's not
I don't know
necessarily,
necessarily that we would be streaming our meetings live.
it's not necessarily the streaming live portion of it.
I mean, like,
That- if it's recorded, it's also, and I think the technology we were using then, which may be the same one that we're using now, like Focus, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think it had somebody there controlling who is speaking.
Before we did,
Oh,
it was Texas. I don't know if you remember. We would always say, hello.
so they had to edit each and every single
It was,
transaction.
and so we went away from that because it was extremely time consuming for that company.
Oh, I thought it was voice. Okay.
But they have changed since then, so I will speak with IT about all of that.
Yeah. And I mean, if there has to be another person that sits in there for a couple of hours, we're definitely gonna be the torchbearers on this to bring this back to where the meetings belong. I mean, I'm sorry if you feel like being on a platform is unnecessary. I don't want to be there. I ain't trying to do this over ego or something. There's a dynamic that we're missing in this meeting that you can feel and that that encapsulated your body when you're sitting around that dais. I don't know, there's like lots of geometrics in that room that just serve to the purpose of that room, that we are having to, you know, represent as community members, whether we like it or not.
And when we had but if we had the beautification in action applicants come, they would come and stand before us and we would look down at them and pass judgment on them. That would be super awkward for me. Like when they were here last time, they just, you know, Daryl Marks was sitting there with the Flag High student, and then that other woman, whose name I don't remember, was over there. And like, we were just, like you were saying, we're just all around the table together. And so, I mean, it's just that it is a different vibe, but that's a vibe that I respond better to.
That's a good argument, and I could see that point for sure. But when if I came to a council meeting in here and I was going to be public participant, I don't know how I would feel about not having a place to be a public participant with a microphone and a place to put my work and a place where I could sit at the council and look them all here. I wouldn't know where to sit and stand, first of all, where to sit. I would feel weird.
Yeah, no, I agree. Council should be.
Just coming, like, I have avoided coming I've come to a few. I've avoided coming to a lot of meetings in this room because it's just awkward for me. If other commission meetings were in council chambers, I'd be happy to show up. I'd have a place to view my people doing their work.
So at this point, Craig can find out about the technology and then.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll do a little bit more research about all the parameters of moving back. Get you more information in general about who meets in there, who doesn't, just so that you guys all know. Then we'll report back to you when we have all that information, and we'll put it up as an action item.
Can we also find out about just buying an owl?
Yes. We'll also.
Because if it's, you know, at least if we get an owl, it would provide the recording to be, and for folks who attend online, we would solve that problem.
Okay.
I would also, I mean, I don't know if there are any rules or anything about us having a traveling commissioner meeting.
Yeah,
I mean, when you talk about public access, and I think that we really want to engage the public in what we're doing, like, why don't we bring this meeting to them instead of expecting them to come to us in this space that I would never enter as a citizen of Flagstaff.
East Side
So-
Library or somewhere.
Right, yeah, exactly. Why aren't we promoting it in other places where the public feel comfortable coming? And I don't know if there's a rule to that.
No, I think we just have to post it as a public meeting, like we had our budget retreat at Creative Flagstaff in the auditorium.
Yeah, and like, why aren't we, we should be supporting the places in town that support that create the arts, and just like we did with Creative Flagstaff. I mean,
I think the issue is we have to be mindful of technology.
yeah, that's.
Right, I mean, I had a meeting, a sustainability meeting at the Aquaplex, and at first it seemed really cool until she couldn't figure out the technology, and she had the laptops, like, you know, looking at all of us on the table. So I think the traveling meeting is a really good idea, but I think technology could be a problem.
Maybe a once a year
Yeah.
special.
Yeah, or maybe we have a traveling owl.
Right. Buy a padded bag for the owl, that's an extra $25.
No, but until we get our reps in, we're never gonna get good at it. I just want to see where, no, I'm just kidding. Craig, did we have a meeting at the Children's Garden? Did we have one there once? With
We've
Mark?
taken field trips.
Oh, okay, that's what it was.
We haven't
Yeah.
had official meetings.
And I think that was our biggest, because we talked about this in the past, and that was our biggest drawback, was like, you know, how are we gonna get like the PowerPoint and stuff like that. But yeah, it's good to add to the conversation. I appreciate you all having this conversation with me. And just because I bring stuff up, guys, doesn't mean you can't say it. I don't like it, you know, and it's all good. I'm just bringing it up just for funsies.
That's good conversation. And I think maybe part of the reason we don't get public comment or public participation is because, I mean, public can't find us, you know, so maybe this.
Well, that's what I was asking that as a legitimate question, and I was asking it more maybe about pre-COVID.
Probably
Pre-COVID, I mean,
three, and I remember two for sure
yeah, I mean,
in 6 years.
yeah, we haven't attracted a lot of attention and just, that's my impression. So I don't know if, and they were in council before.
Yeah,
Um,
more than up here, but not very many.
I would have thought when we were completely online, maybe we would have gotten more actually.
But now that we're seeing more applicants for our projects and stuff, like there's really a synergy building. There's a snowball effect happening. And it'll be my last thing that I do on this earth. It will be get the public in
The next item is the budget, FY '24.
All right, so let's pull that up. This, I'm gonna be concentrating, I've kind of gone over all the capital projects before. There aren't any major, I might be moving up one to an earlier fiscal year, but this is about operating budget increases, the things that, we go on every year, every year. And these are just about the increases. And again, remember, we have a beautification fund and we have an arts and science fund, and beautification is the one that has more money. Well, when the BBB tax was actually in, we had even more money than was projected. And so I had said, I was like, spend it, you know.
By now.
By now. As you know,
Right, great choice.
as you know, our ongoing problem has always been that it's, really hard to actually spend the money for us sometimes with, what we already have going. So, one of the things that we did is that we wanted to increase the travel and training for the commission, travel and training for staff. Now, this all these increases though have to go to budget. So they're gonna ask for justifications. When I put increases or added money to capital, I'm, running the program. I'm the person basically who decides those amounts, with input from the commission. But every increase here, because it's, generally ongoing, it has to go through a whole budget committee. So these can be turned down. And they'll ask, why, so sometimes asking for travel is one of the harder things to ask for, with the budget committee. So some of this we have to, there's reasons why I didn't put $10,000 in the travel training for the commission. And they'll also look, well, you didn't spend yours last year. Why are you asking for an increase? So that's the kind of conversation. So, but we did put increases in that. The one big thing we did is that we're basically asking to double the amount in the beautification and action grants as an ongoing basis. As you know, it's ever since, we took this up in our budget retreat, we're wanting to do more. We just need to get the word out and more applicants. No, we never used up every single amount yet, but we know we're changing that. I feel really confident about that. Maybe March might be just a little bit too soon, but I think by next September, when this money hits, we're gonna have more applicants. And so if we have $85,000, total, that's 17 projects a year. Let's get 17 projects a year. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're asking for that to be doubled. Historic preservation, ask for 10,000 more, just to keep up with the cost of inflation in their grants. That was kind of a given. And then because when we hired Kristen, here comes these other budget items. There's things that go along with her position. There's collections management software, and then we also have ongoing maintenance. We're gonna probably have some special projects that are gonna appear in capital projects, but we need to start having an ongoing maintenance fund, both in beautification and in arts and sciences. So you see that appear twice. It's just less in arts and sciences, reflecting the amount of the fund. And have I told you we're moving? Staff is moving. Okay, so this is one thing about, City Hall and all that. Staff is, beautification and public art staff is moving to the Hopi building, off of Heritage Square. And we are doing Park Flag. As you know, we're in community investment. Park Flag is another one of our programs. And basically, there was a tenant who moved out there, and then, you know, Park Flag was gonna have to find new digs. We had limited space in City Hall for our new staff person. There's this little cubby that Susan and Kristen were gonna have to share, and I can give them each their own office. So, and I think it is for the, you know, you're talking about spaces and ambiance. Yeah, we need to actually do a little work on that space to make it seem like more of a, you know, art place, but it is, you know, right in the heart of, you know, downtown. I think it is a good place for us to be. So anyway, we have funding for rent. So that's an ongoing amount. And then I think under arts and sciences, I maybe I didn't include, somehow, where is it? I put
The cleaning.
the cleaning. I forgot the cleaning.
No, the cleaning's in, there's the second one.
It's the second one? Okay, there it is. All right, I don't know. have my
What about
glasses on, I
remodel?
couldn't see it.
Is that part of the cleaning?
Remodeling.
Or is it-
We're getting facilities to paint.
Okay, so that's.
But
it.
no,
It's
no,
ready to
no, I think we're gonna have to, no, I think we're gonna have to do a little bit of that ourselves. We'll figure it out. The Downtown Business Association is also in there. They tend to leave their equipment out all over the common area. We're gonna have to, like I said, spruce it up a little bit. Then, this came from Heidi Hansen. She wants us to do more like videos about our program and, you know, more outreach, you know, basically, in her words, more marketing, in my words, more educational outreach. So she said we should add 50,000 for ongoing there. And then as, you know, Vice Chair Lebarsky asked for an item, we're not ready for it yet, about what the commission can do as far as outreach and education, but we do want to put a one-time, now this is a one-time, not ongoing, for election education for next year. That's going to be the critical year. The other really big item has to do with Creative Flagstaff. So when we had all this one time in arts and sciences, and that, as you know, it's unusual for us to have extra money in arts and science. But is Heidi and Dave McIntyre would really like us to see us get more money into the nonprofits, in the arts and sciences nonprofits this year. So this is a big number, $200,000 extra. Okay. We think it's the fastest way to get it into the community that, you know, our arts and sciences community. Now, what kind of grants will they be? We're gonna probably discourage them from being operating because this is a one-time shot. We don't know if the BBB funds keep being good, we'll probably next year make an ongoing amount. But if it's 1 year until we really know, because it could be a blip.
Would we get to say how much could be allocated to operating?
That's a discussion between staff and Creative Flagstaff. But I would certainly welcome your input. I think that we are really not wanting if anything, going to operating. We already increased that last year. And so I think they have more money for operating. I think should even cover inflation. So we really would like to see more of the capacity type of grants that Tina and I actually sat on the committees this year. Some would possibly go to fund some of the groups that are applying for ArtX as well, again, but directly into these nonprofits. And if we can help them build capacity, you know, with this one-time influx of money.
Can I just say that I work for a nonprofit and we write grants, and it's really difficult to get people to pay to keep the lights on and to keep your staff on staff, right? Because everybody wants to pay for programs. And so if you're trying to give money to nonprofits in town, remember that they have overhead and they can't provide programming if they can't pay for the overhead. So I'm not suggesting at all that you give 100% operating grants, but if you make some funding available, then, you know, maybe think about adding 20% of operating expenses and 80% programming or capacity building or whatever. But that's such an important part of a nonprofit. And if it's a local nonprofit that we're talking about, that we want to help survive, they got to pay the rent, right? And they got to keep the lights on. And so that's the only thing I would say without, you know.
No. And I hear you, and I'm gonna take in your kind of 20%. What we were fearing, of course, is that, okay, we give people all this operating money this year, and then it's not there next year.
Right.
And they can't plan very well with this like one-time shot,
Right.
because it could be a one-time shot of this magnitude. And so, yes, I think it has to be, you know, just at least a lower amount.
Right.
Because what I'm hoping is that if the funds are good next year, that, we do add to the operating and on an ongoing basis, not a one-time basis. So, now the grant administration, $30,000 underneath that, it is in a Creative Flagstaff's contract. 15% they get for administering the grant. So if we give $200,000, we have to give them $30,000 for the kind of one unit. So those are the ongoing increase requests. Welcome your comments. Of course, like I said, these are going to a budget review committee. I don't know what's gonna come out for sure. We've been very successful in the past though, in getting what we want. So.
I just want to briefly thank staff for, staying in the direction of what the BPAC's intention and spirit of the BPAC has promoted as long as I've been here with these money moves. Thank you.
I just have a question on the election education piece. Like, I'm in full support of us. Like, I know we've had this discussion and how can we support getting the word out? Is there become any kind of, is there any kind of conflict of interest, political piece where we have to also say, why wouldn't you support BBB? We have to present both sides to remain nonpartisan. How does that work?
Right. We are going to be all from the city clerk's office getting an education together about what we can and cannot do. And so, the Vice Chair Lebarsky really wanted that. We weren't ready to present it at this step, but because there's what violates the law, and then there's the appearance of violating, even if not technically violating. And of course, we want to err on the side of caution. So we're going to be getting that probably maybe April or May.
We mean the commission's going
The
to get that?
commission and the staff. Probably the staff is going to get a separate training, and then we'll be bringing it to the commission. And we're going to actually have the city clerk's office conduct to you. It's not going to be staff instructing you.
Thank you. Folks on the call, any questions or comments about the budget?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
No, I'm good.
Any other questions or comments? Moving forward, the two from items, city staff.
None.
I don't have anything. Councilmember Sweet is gone. Additional two from items from the commission.
I just wanted to let you know that I had the opportunity to get with Creative Flagstaff and co-MC event with former Commissioner Dapper Dre, the 4 miniature golf meets artful design fundraiser. I would like the public to know that they are welcome to enjoy this exhibit up until February 23rd. Bring your kids. It's really a cool thing. And it gives us a lot of information about the Colorado Plateau in general and the artists that work amongst here. That's it.
Any information on cost or time of hours?
Yeah, so typically it's going from 1 to 6 p.m. during the weekdays, and the cost for adults, I believe, is $16 and children is $8. And that's for 9 holes of golf plus an interactive, I don't know what you call it, the
Experience.
Yeah, the interactive experience, a golfing experience.
I think that's if you have travel, Brent.
Team building personified. Yes.
February 23rd, we have to get it in by February.
You can do it. I've seen you move mountains.
Thank you. Any other to or from items from commissioners? Any requests for future agenda items?
Yes, I'll be brief. I want to start recording our meetings for the public, please. So however we have to go about that, and whether it's on
We are already recording them and they are already on our website.
And, okay, so are they not on the city's?
No, they're not on they're not on that general page.
Yeah, that's what I want. Or at least put on that page as well.
I want to
If
just
we
hear
can.
from Craig real quick on that. I think there's a reason why we're not there.
Putting them like that on that page is part of this conversation that I will have with IT. But they are on the city website. Well, at least a link to a YouTube channel that we have.
I appreciate
And
that.
that's done by a public affairs.
I appreciate that. Thank you guys very much. See, I couldn't even find where they were. So if that tells you anything. And also, can we please, wait, I'm trying to figure this out. Okay, so apparently, this is news to me too. Ponderosa Park has an infusion of cash, something in the Parks Department. We're gonna build a park on the sunny side. Whoop, whoop. What can we do, or what role do we have in that, or do we not have any role in that? Also, Sunnyside Fire Station by Joe Gargiola Field or whatever. Joel Montalvo, yeah. There's two separate names. The Diamondbacks named it one thing, and then we have our locals name, so I just cross-pollinated a little. That thing is gonna be built out for something, and I know we already have art there on one side of the wall, but when this project takes place, do we have say in with our PPAC dollars? I don't know if that's a future agenda item topic or not.
Okay, so I can answer just that, we don't have a project, obviously, because it would have been in our retreat going on
Right.
at that site at this time.
Right.
So is this something you're asking, like, can we?
We need to figure that out.
Or do you just want to know what's going on at Ponderosa Park? Do you want a presentation by Parks? I'm trying to figure out what the
Yeah.
request is.
Yeah, no, okay, so maybe that's the request. I'm trying to figure this out too. How do we get part of this conversation with these two projects that are coming up? How does PPAC get involved with that? If that requires a presentation, then that's excellent. That's how we do it.
I'm just curious, do you know at all when this project is going?
I have no clue. This is a
Okay.
kind of hearsay, so maybe I'm just spreading a rumor, but the rumor has put me in a couple of meetings so far.
Okay.
So
'cause
maybe a
what
discussion
I'm trying
item?
No, it can be a discussion item. What I'm trying to figure out is, should this be aligned with, when we're considering new projects? As a, because like what we did last year, where we had people bring new project ideas July, August, as a build up to our retreat, so that then we can rank it with the other projects, because if it's a new project, it has to kind of go through that process, unless it's time sensitive.
Yeah.
Right, and so the first thing, that's why I was asking the question about the timing, because I can certainly ask Parks to present on what they're doing there. But then I think if there's an idea for us to be involved, then it has to kind of go through that new project process.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I think first step would be to be a discussion point and do some research. And then so can we be involved, right? So if staff could find out what's going on, the timeline, and then we can discuss whether we want to be involved if we have the opportunity. And then Parks can present, and then we can put it on the list of projects and rank. Does that work for you?
That sounds perfect.
So we need two people to support. I'll support that.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
I'll
Yeah.
third that.
Thank you. Three of us support it.
I'm curious to know the timeline, because if it's not as something we can get in as a project for a BPAC, is it something that I could get DIA grants for? Yeah, that's good.
Any other two from items? Or, I'm sorry, future requests. I'm sorry, requests for future agenda items. Hearing none. A reminder that our next meeting is Monday, March 13th at 4 p.m. Location TBD.
No.
Here. In the same space without an owl. I will adjourn the meeting at 6:22 p.m. and thank everybody for staying as long as we did and being engaged. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all. See you later.
Dave.
Now it's my mission to find the stuff. Animal owl.
Yeah.